Hi pet lovers, thank you for joining Gina's grooming channel. Today's episode is going to be on brushing a poodle in between full grooms. So in between full baths and grooms and brush outs. So the weeks that go by in between the time that you are actually bathing your poodle, we're going to go ahead and show you how to brush properly. Now, if you don't have a purebred poodle, don't go away because this also applies to poodle mixes. So this technique that I'm going to show you applies not only to our poodle breeds, it also applies to doodles and poos. So let's go ahead and jump in and show you the techniques to properly brush your poodle and your poodle mixes. Now, in professional grooming, there is definitely a disconnect between clients and the groomers. So a lot of clients that have dogs like this, so poodles and poodle mixes, they say, okay, I've brushed my dog. And they really do believe they brushed their dog. I want to show you that I think that a lot of clients are just going through with a slicker brush and brushing the dog, usually on the top line only. Move over here, sweetie. And really not getting into detail. And so the dog comes into their professional grooming session and the pet is matted. So any substantial coat, if it's not brushed out properly, will go ahead and tend to mat. But I'm going to show you the key issue here is it doesn't only involve a brush, so a slicker brush, it also involves checking and combing. I'm also going to add something for our poodles and poodle mixes that we're going to use a conditioning spray in every section that we're going to do to brush and comb out a dog. Now, before we jump in, let's talk about the different types of brushes that are available for you for this type of coat. So the slicker brush is what you want to use. It has these pins, very fine pins on the slicker brush, and that's what you're going to go ahead and do the first part of the brushing after you spray. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But know that these pins have a different level of hardness. So this is a Chris Christensen. This is really great for fluffing, but it's very soft pins. So for actually going through to the skin of a dog while brushing, definitely a little bit of a harder slicker brush may work better for you for a coarse coat. But again, if your poodle or poodle mix has a little finer coat, you want to go ahead and use a softer pin. So after we decide what brush is appropriate for your type of coat and the job, because if you're brushing a lot, you may be able to use a softer pin all the time. Let's talk about different combs, because not one comb usually is going to be able to do the trick. After we brush, we're going to go ahead and check our work with a comb. With coarse coats like poodles, so coarse hair coats, I go ahead and start with a pretty wide space comb, right? And then I go down and into more narrow space and more narrow space. Now with certain types of dogs like Malteses and different drop coats, I may go to the very narrow comb. So you can see that this has a fine side, right, and a little wider side. So usually I find that this side of my comb is sufficient to get all the way down to the root, make sure they don't mat. Now, very importantly, before we brush and comb any areas, we are going to use a conditioning agent. So a conditioning spray, this is Magic Touch number 3 from Crown Royale. This is what's really great, recommended for coarse coats and poodles out there. And what I'm going to show you is I'm going to spray a section, brush the section, and then check it with my comb. Now, the conditioning spray is used for many reasons. It comes in really handy, not only to slick out the coat while you're brushing and combing, but also to refresh the coat. So it's going to add a pleasant odor and also repel any dirt that may fall on the coat between professional grooming visits or between your baths. Now, before I jump in and actually do my spray, brush, and comb, I also want to talk about dissecting the parts of your dog that you're going to be brushing. Because if you just kind of willy-nilly go around the body, you're not going to be focusing and targeting an area, and you're not going to be able to move on from that area not knowing that it's done. So I'll tell you my pattern, but definitely feel free to choose whatever pattern works for you, but keep that pattern if you can. And this way, what I do is I do one section, right? And then I go to another part of the anatomy, I do another section, and then I go to another one, so forth and so on. So my pattern, and this is kind of, I'll explain why I do this, is I usually start with the rear leg because that's least sensitive for a lot of dogs. I continue on to one side of the body, and then I go into the front legs. Why do I do this? Is that rear legs usually dogs aren't as fussy for the front legs. So then I finish both front legs and chest, continue down the other side of the dog, right? And then I save the rear leg as the last part on the body. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead to the tail. The reason why I don't start with the tail is dogs can be very touchy for tails also. So what I want to do is make sure that the pet is relaxed. By the time I get to the tail, they should be really, really relaxed with the whole procedure, and I can go ahead, brush their tail, and then I focus on the headpiece The very last piece is the head, and if it's a poodle with substantial coat, also the neck piece pretty much down to the shoulder blades, the withers. Okay, let's go ahead and brush this poodle. Okay, so I've got my slicker brush, I've got my spray, and like we talked about, I'm going to start with the back leg. So I spray the area. Okay. I'm going to go through with my slicker brush. If anyone has questions on how hard you should use a slicker brush, you can go ahead and test it on your own hand, okay, on skin, so you can understand how much pressure you should be putting with this slicker brush. You want to be effective, but obviously not cause any scraping of the skin or brush burn. Now I'm lifting up the coat to make sure I get in there with the brush. And you want to make sure that you get all the bits right close to the foot. And if you're a doodle or a poo, a labradoodle, a golden doodle, or a Maltese-poo, or any other variety of our poos, they usually don't get shaven feet. So make sure you spend a lot of time checking those feet. And if you need to spray again, make sure you spray, not too much, just enough to slick out the coat, help you with the brushing process. Good girl. You're doing so good. Yes, you are. Such a good girl. Okay, so I brushed out this leg. This is this one side of the leg. I'm going to go ahead and check it with my wide tooth comb. Looking good. Okay, going through really nicely. But that could be because this is pretty wide. I like to kind of go with a wide comb in case I hit something. It's not too intensive for the first comb check. Okay, so now I'm going to use, again, a little wider space comb on my two-sided comb here. Now, if it's not going through really nicely, I'm just putting a little bit of pressure, but I really want to be making sure that I go down all the way to the root. You can find an intermediary comb, so this one's a little wider. I'm going to go ahead and check with this. Good girl. Where I'm finding resistance, I can go ahead and just apply pressure. Obviously, if there's a mat, I don't want to yank that out. If there's a mat, we can talk about matting in another episode. And in fact, we do have some videos on matting and dealing with that. But if you do have a tight mat, you don't want to apply any pressure and get through it. But right now, what I'm doing is going all the way to the skin with my comb. And until I can do that with my comb, I haven't properly brushed out my dog. Okay, so as we discussed, I'm going to go ahead and brush her out. Again, we have finished this one leg. I'm going to now go to this section. Again, spray, brush, check with comb, and then go on to the next section. Well, all right, guys, that's about it for how to brush a poodle or a poodle mix or your doodles and poos. This applies to you as well. If you have any substantial coat on the body, you may need to do this a few times a week, depending on the coat type and the length that you're leaving the coat. And don't forget that your poodle or your poodle mix may be short all over its body, but still have beautiful ears, beautiful long ears, beautiful long tail. So don't forget not only to brush those, but also to comb, and make sure that you use the conditioning agent before you brush, and then check with your comb. Well, all right, guys, happy brushing. If you have any questions, comments, please put them down below. We'll be happy to answer them for you. Thanks for clicking that thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe for more like it. We'll see you soon. Good girl. Are you a good girl? Are you a good girl? You're a good girl.